In my full episode breakdown of Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2, the fantastic premiere, there are a couple of things I set aside because I wanted to dedicate an entire video to them, and they both concern Shin Hati, Baylan Skoll's apprentice. Did you notice in the scene on Lothal when she tracks down Sabine Wren, the way she's hooded, the camera angles, the overall aesthetics, and not to mention the probe droid, were all reminiscent and deliberately a reference to Maul on Tatooine in The Phantom Menace, when he tracks down Qui-Gon and Anakin. Given that the Ahsoka series has reignited talks about Dathomir and about Night Sisters, this is quite appropriate, although I'm not saying Shin has anything to do with that. It's Morgan Elsbeth territory, and Maul was born on Dathomir. So it's just a little nod and a visual reference too. But is it also foreshadowing? And this is what I really want to talk about today. Is Shin Hati going to be set aside in the same way that Maul was by Palpatine? Is she the apprentice for now, doing all the dark deeds and all of the work, but eventually will be cast aside? Let's talk about it. As I said, in the breakdown I spoke about the late great Ray Stevenson's character Baylan and how he seems conflicted about his Jedi past. He's got a bit of nostalgia towards the Jedi Order which fell. He is not completely detached. He talks about the fact it'd be a shame if Ahsoka Tano had to die because there are so few of them left. Now I've made theory videos explaining what a dark Jedi could mean in terms of canon because we've seen them extensively in the expanded universe, especially in Timothy Zahn's work. But when I was rewatching the episodes for the umpteenth time, I noticed the character of Shin is deliberately off. She almost seems lost at times, and I think this is deliberate. Ivana Sakno did a great job. This is not a criticism, it's just something I've noticed about the way Dave Filoni wrote the character. She's always looking to Baylan, which is natural because he's her master, she's the apprentice, but I think there's more than that. It's almost as if they're not on the same page. In the same way that Morgan Elsbeth wants the destruction of Ahsoka Tano, Baylan seems to be somewhat a bit more defensive, and a similar dynamic exists between him and his apprentice Shin. I don't think she was a survivor of Order 66. She became his Padawan later on. She's quite young, she's got the Padawan braid, and she's following his interpretation of the Force, which I think is a path somewhere in the middle. They tap into the dark side, but they're not fully fledged Sith. This path and these philosophies seem clearer to her master though, because for Shin, she's always waiting for the next instruction, almost uncertain of herself and the world around her. She's just going along, and I think they've set up future conflict between the two. When Morgan Elsbeth asks Baylan if he is troubled by Ahsoka's presence on Corellia, he says he is. This shocks his apprentice Shin. She turns to him like, "Wait, what did you say?" And then she adds, "They got out of there clean alive." But Baylan knows that Ahsoka's coming, so there seems to be a bit of a divide in the way they think. And I don't know if when Shin signed up to be his apprentice, she fully understood his motives, his true intentions. Maybe she goes too far, maybe she leans too much to the dark, and he doesn't, which is clear from the first 2 episodes, in very subtle ways mind you. And this to me sets up 2 possibilities for the future of a character, a foreshadowing of sorts. I believe she's either going to die a very tragic death, or she may end up betraying Baylan. I may be reading too much into this, but if you go back and rewatch some of the scenes where you see Shin talking to Baylan, their dynamic is not as in sync as you may have assumed. It could just be the nature of being an inexperienced Padawan, but she does take a back seat a lot. When she's on her own fighting someone like Sabine, she finds her mojo, but otherwise she's rather sheepish, especially around her master. It could just be the way she's written, to show that she's just the apprentice, just the Padawan learner, and she's following in the footsteps of Baylan. And those who disagree with this assessment have stated that while very different characters, this dynamic is like an inverse take on Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the sense of his allegiance to his master. But the more I think about it, the more I realise if there was influence of the Phantom Menace, then Obi-Wan at this age was very similar. Always saying yes master to Qui-Gon Jinn, always just following along. But I do think Obi-Wan was a bit more assertive than Shin. And Baylan and Qui-Gon in their own ways were trying to follow the will of the Force rather than one single order. The only difference being Baylan comes at it from a more dark side perspective, so you could say a bit like Count Dooku. Dave Filoni is fantastic with stories, so I'm sure there is a reason behind it, and I can't wait to learn more about them, because it got me thinking, if Baylan was young and survived Order 66, left the Order after the Clone Wars, then the way he acquired Shin, unless she was a very young youngling, could have been a mere accident. He may have sensed a Force-sensitive child and took her under his wing. It could just be me reading into this too much, but I sense something bad is going to happen between the two. That being said, she is very powerful and very skilled for her abilities. Hayang, when analysing their lightsabers, said he recognised Baylan's, but not Shin. That's because she wasn't at the Jedi Temple at the time of Coruscant. Baylan acquired her when the time at the temple was done, after the Clone Wars. Although Hayang does affirm, Both are Jedi trained, so I'm interested in finding out their philosophies, what paths they went down and what led them there. This whole Dark Jedi thing is fascinating. Now, if this timid, uncertain nature is deliberate, then some fans have pointed out that Sabine and Shin are almost like the same character, just one on the dark side and one on the light. In a way, they're a parallel. They're a deliberate mirror of each other. I could see why Dave did this. In a sense, Shin might be a catalyst to Sabine realizing her potential. I mean, think about it. If Shin hadn't beaten her, Sabine wouldn't have ended up in hospital and wouldn't have had that one-to-one talk with her Yang about getting back into it, about being Ahsoka's apprentice again. I do think this is something Dave's done deliberately. And I guess at this stage, having just had two brilliant episodes by Dave Filoni and Steph Green, we're supposed to be having these feelings. We're supposed to be asking these big questions. What's in the cards for these characters? What are their true intentions? Are they going to get what they seek when they find Thrawn? Is Baylan going to attain power, or is Thrawn just luring them there? And in reality, they're just chess pieces for his quest. But as I say, Ivana Sakno did great, but I do suspect there is more to Shin. That is a prediction I'm going to make right now. Now, we actually do have some very good news for the Ahsoka series. A week and a half ago, fans were getting really upset when they realised that episode 3, the second episode by Steph Green after episode 2, which comes out next Wednesday, is going to be very short. The second shortest ever episode of the Mandoverse. And after 2 very nice lengthy episodes for the first 2 of this series, I don't think it's too much of a bad thing. It's about the quality of the story over quantity. So while some fans got really upset by this, saying they need to make the episodes longer, they should all be an hour in length, while that isn't going to be the case, there is some very good news for episode 5. The second episode, directed by Dave. He wrote all the episodes, but he only directed 2, episode 1 and episode 5. While this doesn't reveal the runtime of episode 4, episode 5, the episode I just spoke about, is going to be another long one, 46 minutes and 10 seconds without credits, or 49 minutes and 50 seconds in length with. That's really good. And that is the episode that I think fans expect Anakin, maybe a proper introduction to Ezra and Thrawn, not just in holograms, not just in references, but we actually see them. Now, we've already had tons of fan service in the first 2, but that is the episode. Just like his episodes of Mando and his episode of the Book of Boba Fett, those always seem to deliver big cameos and big moments. It was brilliant, and I'm not saying you need fan service every 2 seconds for a Star Wars episode to be good. That's not what I'm saying whatsoever. But it's always nice, isn't it? It's just the cherry on top, the cream on top. It just makes the episode so much more exciting. I'm not saying anything's gonna happen for sure, but to know we have another long one for episode 5, just past the halfway mark of the series, there are 8 in total, that is very good news. And hopefully the episodes are generally around this mark, instead of being really short and then somewhat long. But if the story is well told, if there's some consistency over the episodes, then that's all that matters. And oh boy, what a premiere it was. If you haven't done so already, my dear friends, go back and watch my full episode breakdown. You won't regret it. It's a lengthy review, a nice long megasode. But if you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. May the Force be with you, always.